This One News update is brought to you by ANZ, proud sponsor of the New Zealand Olympic team.
Kia ora, good evening. We begin with something to discuss in the living room with your teenager tonight. How to budget on just $10.80 an hour.
Yes, from April that'll be the reality for many 16 to 19-year-olds, with employers able to pay below the minimum wage of $13.50. For the details, let's go to political editor Corin Dan. Corin.
Well, good evening, everybody. Youth rates aren't new. We've had them before, but they were scrapped by the Labor Party back in 2008. But if you put them alongside, or a return of them, alongside that 90-day probation period that National was also brought on, you start to really see how National is trying to make the labour market as flexible as possible. For 16-year-old Kenna Horsfield, finding a job is tough.
I've been looking for a while, because I want to get some more hours and get paid more and that kind of thing. And it's really hard because they're all looking for people with experience.
Because while the country's overall jobless rate is 6.8%, for 15 to 19-year-olds not at school and not working, it's near 9%.
If we can create another 2,000 jobs by giving employers the incentive to take on young people who aren't experienced, then I think that's a good thing.
From April next year, employers will be able to pay some 16 to 19-year-olds a new hourly rate set at 80% of the minimum wage, or about $10.80 an hour. However, it only applies to 16 and 17-year-olds in their first 6 months of work with a new employer, and for 16 to 19-year-olds entering the workforce after being on a benefit. Employers who are not required to offer the rate say it'll make a difference.
Bringing the number down makes it attractive for employers to give them a go.
Around 40,000 young people will be eligible for the youth rate, including some in industry training schemes. However, unions doubt it will help.
We simply don't believe that bringing in a youth minimum wage for these young people will get them into work.
Labor, which scrapped the youth minimum wage in 2008, remains sceptical.
He's not going to create jobs by driving down wages. These people are going to leave and go to Australia.
Along with the start-out youth pay rate, the government has also announced it'll produce a report each year that will inform students which occupations have good career prospects.
So in areas like engineering and ICT, where the skills gaps are already appearing, it's giving young people clear signals that this is the sort of stuff that they should be studying.
Universities and polytechs take note. The government is signalling future funding could also be tied to those occupation reports.
So, Corin, this policy coincides with a survey showing the business sector is increasingly gloomy about New Zealand's economic prospects. Tell us more.
Yes, that's right. A little bit of a surprise here. The NZIER, a think tank which has a lead indicator on the economy, it basically goes out, surveys businesses to see how they're feeling. They are feeling pretty gloomy about things, and in fact, all the signs are that the labour market is softening, so things could get a lot tougher from here. Now, of course, this policy today, that will please some business owners, but whether it can produce the jobs that many are looking for remains to be seen. Just one more thing, the government will announce, will open up its books tomorrow. We'll get a chance to see how they are going to try and get back to that surplus target. We'll have that for you tomorrow night.
Great, thanks, Corin. That's political editor Corin Dan there.
This One News update is brought to you by ANZ, proud sponsor of the New Zealand Olympic team.
Minimum wage for young people has drawn stinging criticism from some quarters since its announcement yesterday. The government says it'll help young people compete for jobs, whereas opponents say it'll send those young workers straight onto a flight to Australia. So just what is the likely impact? A spokesperson for the New Zealand Retailers Association, Louise Evans McDonald, joins me now. Good morning to you, Louise. I understand from Department of Labour research that between 4,500 and 9,000 young people lost their jobs when the youth minimum wage was abolished. Are we likely to see retailers employ more people now that we have this alternative?
Yeah, I think that the retail sector is one of the largest employer groups in the nation. So we've got around 325,000 people employed in retail, and so it's around 20% of the workforce. And of that, the high propensity of youth within the retail sector is higher. So that 16 to 17-year-old age group is certainly the retail sector will certainly be looking to cater for them. When the youth rate was abolished, I mean, we did highlight at the time that we were concerned that the youth workers in particular will be affected, and we're looking forward to seeing with the reintroduction, of which 71% of our members, when surveyed last year, were keen to see reintroduced, to actually see more youth coming back into employment in the retail sector.
But if a 20% saving on a worker's wage bill means so much to a particular company, are they not likely to lose their jobs once their wage goes up to the normal minimum wage after 6 months?
Now, what you're going to get is you're going to get a higher level of productivity. So in that first 6 months, for example, or generally in the first 3 to 6 months, a new employee who is new to the workforce has got a lot of skills to learn. So you've got teaching them things like getting into work on time. So there's a number of other work-ready skills that are being taught. So getting those people up to a level of productivity is really important, and it's going to take that 6 months time frame. Now, if you've invested all that time and energy in that 6 months, you're not going to want to waste that and let those people go. And again, that productivity will obviously reflect in your ROI. They're more productive. They're potentially selling more, etc. So it's a positive thing, and so you're not going to be wanting to quickly just drop them.
But what I mean is, if retailers, which as you mentioned already employ a number of 16 and 17-year-olds, are they likely to employ more of them because they're slightly cheaper for 6 months?
Well, not just for a 6 month period. I mean, you have to have a business reason as to why you would want to employ someone for 6 months only. Otherwise you're leaving yourself open for certain disciplinary actions. So what you're going to do is it's going to give retailers an opportunity to take on staff, 16 to 17-year-olds, more of them, because some of those risk factors are mitigated by the cost.
Are retailers have anything against employing people who have been on a benefit? Because this legislation does also affect 18 and 19-year-olds for that 6 month period after they have been drawing a benefit.
Exactly. No, there's no discrimination or anything like that. What it's doing is it's giving an opportunity again. You've been out of work potentially for 6 months or greater, and again going back into the workforce. There's another whole education process that needs to take place within the workforce. So this rate is a fair reflection of the extra time and support that has been put in to that employee.
It is discrimination though, isn't it? That you're going to be paid a lower wage simply because you've been unfortunate enough to find yourself out of work and on a benefit.
No, it's certainly not talking about, we're saying that it's lower, lower value work. What we're saying is, or what we see, is that it's a fair, reasonable trade-off. It puts skin in the game for both parties, that we're going to, as an employer, invest a lot of energy and support mechanisms in place to get you back into work-ready status.
Look, could I just briefly ask you, Shanton Retail, an indication they have gone into receivership 39 stores around the country. What do you put that down to? Is it the tough retail environment? Is it online shopping?
It'll be a number of combination of factors, and again, you also need to look at a certain type of business model. The apparel sector is a very competitive market, and there will be pressures for anyone in the apparel market, particularly from offshore as well. The exchange rates have been favourable if you're importing your product from offshore. Often you're doing that, 6 to 9 months out from a season. It's always sad to see any retailer, especially one that's been around for such a long period of time, to close their doors. It is a highly competitive market, and especially if you're in that mid-range of retailers where you're not necessarily differentiating or have a niche product. So if you're in the mass market, in the middle space there, it is very difficult.
Indeed it is. Thank you very much, Louise Evans McDonald from the Retailers Association.